You just got promoted, six-figure salary. Your parents are proud, your friends are impressed, and somehow, you have less money than you did 3 years ago when you were making half as much. What the hell happened? My name is Elon Musk, and I spend way too much time thinking about why successful people are going broke. If you're someone who's climbed the corporate ladder, increased your income significantly, but can't seem to build actual wealth, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today we're talking about something nobody warns you about when you're grinding your way to the top, the hidden tax of being the highest earner in your social circle. And trust me, it's costing you way more than you think. Here's the thing, when you make $45,000 a year, you know exactly what you can't afford. That's easy. The boundaries are crystal clear. You're shopping at Target, driving a used, and your apartment has that weird smell you've just learned to live with. But then something shifts, you get that promotion. Suddenly you're making $95,000, then $130,000, then $180,000, and this is where the math gets really weird. According to a 2023 study by the Federal Reserve, households earning between $150,000 and $200,000 save, on average, just 8% of their income. You know what households making $75,000 to $100,000 save, also around 8%. Let me say that again. People making double the income are saving roughly the same percentage. In some cases, they're actually saving less in absolute dollars because their necessary expenses have exploded. Look, I'm not here to judge anyone's choices, but we need to talk about what's actually happening here because the math doesn't lie. Here's what most people don't realize. Your expenses aren't determined by what you need. They're determined by what the people around you have. When you're making $50,000 and all your friends are making $50,000, there's this unspoken agreement. We're all going to the same restaurants. We're all buying similar cars. Nobody's showing up to the group vacation talking about their business class flight because nobody took a business class flight. But when you become the high earner, everything changes. Now you're the one who can afford it. You're expected to pick up dinner more often, choose the nicer, upgrade to the better seats. And here's the insidious part, you want to, because in your head you've earned it. You're working harder than everyone else. You're stressed. You deserve this. Except here's the problem. Your friends didn't get raises, the restaurant prices didn't change, but your average dinner out just went from $35 to $85 because you're treating people more often, choosing nicer places, and never suggesting the cheaper option because, well, you make more money now. Let me give you a real example. I have a friend, let's call him, went from making $65,000 as a teacher to $140,000 in e-tech sales. Great news, right? Within 18 months, here's what happened. Moved from a $1,400 month apartment to a $2,800 month apartment because I can finally afford a nice place. Traded his paid off for a $52,000 BMW on a 5-year loan because I need to look successful in sales. Started a $200 month gym membership instead of his old $30 Planet Fitness because I'm investing in my health. Increased his dining out from twice a week to 5 times a week because I'm too tired to cook after these sales calls. His income increased by $75,000 per year. His expenses increased by $68,000 per year. He went from saving $400 a month to saving $583 a month. His income more than doubled, and his monthly savings increased by $183. Now you might be thinking, okay, but those are extreme examples. I'm not buying a BMW. Fair enough, let's talk about the small stuff, because this is where it gets really interesting. When you make $45,000, you think twice about a $6 latte. When you make $150,000, it's background noise. It's barely even a transaction. You don't even remember buying it. A 2024 study from the Journal of Consumer Research found that people who receive significant salary increases experience what they call financial numbness. They literally stop tracking small purchases because their mental threshold for expensive has shifted. Here's what that looks like in real life. That $6 coffee becomes daily instead of occasional, $1,560 per year. Lunch meetings instead of packed lunches, $3,600 per year. Premium subscriptions you forgot you had, $1,200 per year. Convenience purchases DoorDash, TaskRabbit, $4,800 per year. Investment purchases, courses, coaching, masterminds you never use, $2,500 per year. That's $13,660 per year in expenses that feel like nothing individually, but compound into a significant lifestyle tax. And look, I'm not saying you should deprive yourself, but here's what's actually happening. You're outsourcing your entire life because your time feels more valuable, which means your money is constantly leaking through services and conveniences that you didn't need before. Let me tell you about the most dangerous room you can be in. A room full of other high earners who are all pretending to be wealthier than they are. See, when you're the highest earner among people making $50,000, you feel rich. When you're making $150,000 surrounded by people making $200,000 to $500,000, now you feel poor. And that's when things get really expensive. This is where the luxury purchases start, not because you want them, but because you need to signal that you belong. According to research from Boston University's School of Business, status signaling purchases increase by 290% when individuals are the lowest earner in a high-earning peer group versus being the highest earner in a moderate-earning group. 290%. That's the designer bag you don't need, the lease on the luxury car when you could buy a reliable car in cash, the vacation to Santorini when you'd actually prefer a week at the lake. You're not buying things, you're buying the appearance of belonging. And here's the really messed up part. Everyone else in that room is doing the exact same thing. You're all going broke together while pretending to be wealthy. It's like a financial Mexican standoff where everyone's pointing debt at each other. Look, here's what most people don't realize about wealth building. It's not about how much you make. It's about the gap between what you make and what you spend. Let me show you two scenarios. Person A makes $80,000 a year, spends $55,000 a year, invests the difference, $25,000 a year. After 20 years at 8% returns, $1,146,000. Person B makes $180,000 a year, spends $155,000 a year, invests the difference, $25,000 a year. After 20 years at 8% returns, $1,146,000. They end up in the exact same place. Except person B spent 20 years stressed about maintaining a lifestyle they couldn't actually afford, while person A was just living. Now let's look at person C. Person C makes $180,000 a year, keeps expenses at $85,000 a year, similar to what person A spent, just adjusted for inflation and life changes. Invests the difference, $95,000 a year. After 20 years at 8% returns, $4,355,000. That's the cost of lifestyle creep. That's the cost of being the highest earner in the room and feeling like you need to act like it. Person C has almost 4 times the wealth of person B, despite making the exact same income. The only difference, person C didn't let their expenses chase their income. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what's the point of making more money if I can't enjoy it? And that's a fair question. This is the part where we need to talk about the psychology behind all this. See, there's this concept in behavioral economics called the hedonic treadmill. Basically, no matter how much our circumstances improve, we quickly adapt and return to a baseline level of happiness. That luxury apartment feels amazing for about 6 weeks. Then it just becomes your apartment, the same apartment you'll complain about when the AC doesn't work. That BMW gives you a thrill for maybe 3 months. Then it's just the thing you're stressed about parking in the city. A study from Princeton University found that emotional well-being rises with income up to about $75,000 per year, and more recent data suggests it may now be closer to $95,000 when adjusted for inflation. After that, the happiness gains are marginal at best. But here's what does create lasting satisfaction: progress toward financial security. Knowing you could survive 6 months without a paycheck, knowing your kid's college is funded, knowing you could walk away from a toxic job without destroying your life. That's what reduces stress, not the designer handbag, not the luxury apartment, not the expensive dinners. You want to know what real wealth looks like? It's not the person posting their business class seat on Instagram. Real wealth is boring. It's a paid-off in the driveway. It's a mortgage that's 40% of your take-home pay instead of 70%. It's a savings rate that would make your peers think you're crazy. I know a couple, let's call them Sarah and James, combined income of $285,000. They live in a $2,200 a month house in a good school district, not a fancy neighborhood, just a good one. They drive cars that are 7 and 9 years old. They take nice vacations, but they're strategic about it. Off-season travel, points and miles, actually planning. They save $110,000 per year. At their current pace, they'll be financially independent in 12 years. Not, I hope my 401k works out, financially independent. I mean, I literally never have to work again if I don't want to, financially independent. They're both 38 years old. Meanwhile, their friends who make similar money, still stressed about making the mortgage, still one bad quarter away from financial panic, still unable to take a job they'd actually enjoy because they need that salary to maintain the lifestyle. This is where it gets really interesting. Sarah and James are actually happier than most of their higher spending peers, not because they're depriving themselves, but because they've opted out of the status game entirely. They're not trying to impress anyone, they're not trying to look wealthy. They're just building actual wealth quietly while everyone else is performing wealth. Alright, so how do you actually break this cycle? Because recognizing the problem is one thing, but changing your behavior is another. Here are the 3 psychological shifts that make this possible. Shift 1, redefine what you're optimizing for. Stop optimizing for looking successful and start optimizing for being free. Every spending decision is a choice between impressing people now and buying freedom later. That $800 month car payment, that's your still have to show up to this job I hate payment. That luxury apartment, that's your can't take a risk on the business I actually want to start payment. When you reframe expenses as freedom costs, it changes everything. Shift 2, build in friction. When your income increases, there's this temptation to immediately upgrade everything. Resist that. Here's what I recommend when you get a raise or promotion. Take 100% of that increase and immediately redirect it to investments or savings. Live on your old salary for at least 6 months. Let the new income become invisible. Why? Because once you upgrade your lifestyle, it's almost impossible to downgrade. Your brain adapts, that expense becomes necessary. But if you never let it into your lifestyle in the first place, you literally don't miss it. Shift 3, find different rooms. Look, this is going to sound harsh, but you might need to change who you spend time with. If your entire social circle is based on expensive dinners, luxury travel, and keeping up appearances, it's almost impossible to maintain your financial discipline. The pressure is too constant, the FOMO is too real. Find people who are wealth building, not wealth performing. Join communities of people who talk about savings rates and investment strategies, not which restaurants are trending. This doesn't mean abandoning your friends. It means being intentional about whose financial values you're absorbing. All right, let's make this practical. Here's what you do starting today. Step 1, calculate your real lifestyle inflation. Go back to your bank statements from 3 years ago. Calculate your average monthly spending. Now look at your current average monthly spending. Subtract the first from the second. That's your lifestyle inflation. That's the annual cost of becoming the highest earner in the room. Step 2, identify your status purchases. Make a list of expenses that exist primarily to signal status. Be honest, this isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. For each one, ask, am I buying this because it genuinely improves my life, or because I want people to know I can afford it? Step 3, set a reverse budget. Instead of budgeting expenses, budget your savings first. Decide what percentage of your income you're saving. I recommend at least 25% if you're a high earner. Automate that, and then live on what's left. This is the only budgeting method that actually works for high earners because it removes the temptation to spend what's left over. Step 4, create your enough number. Calculate exactly how much you need to be financially independent. Use the 4% rule as a starting point. Take your annual expenses, multiply by 25. That's your FI number. Now you have a target. Every dollar you don't spend gets you closer. Every lifestyle upgrade pushes it further away. It makes the trade-off explicit. Step 5, practice 1 year behind living. This is the ultimate test. Can you live on last year's income this year? If you got a $20,000 raise, can you save the entire thing and live as if it never happened? If you can do this, you're building wealth. If you can't, you're on the treadmill. Look, here's the bottom line. Being the highest earner in the room isn't a blessing if it turns into a burden. And for most people, that's exactly what happens. They work harder, earn more, and end up with less freedom because they let their lifestyle consume every dollar they make. The cost of being the highest earner isn't just financial. It's the stress of maintaining appearances. It's the golden handcuffs of a lifestyle you can't afford to leave. It's reaching age 50 and realizing you've been wealthy on paper but broke in practice for 2 decades. But here's the good news, you can opt out right now, today. You can decide that building actual wealth matters more than performing wealth. You can decide that freedom matters more than status. You can decide to be the person who drives the boring car and retires at 45 instead of the person who drives the fancy car and works until they're 70. The math is simple, the psychology is hard, but it's possible. So ask yourself, do you want to look rich or do you want to be free? Because you probably can't have both. If this video helped you see things differently, make sure to subscribe. I release videos every week breaking down the financial decisions that separate people who build wealth from people who just look wealthy. And drop a comment below, what's one lifestyle expense you're going to cut this month? Let's hold each other accountable. I'll see you in the next one.